Welcome back to our channel Numismatics Hub. In the final year of the 20th century, as the world prepared to step into a new millennium, Britain stood both grounded in centuries of tradition and eager for the modern challenges of the future. Amidst this atmosphere of transition and anticipation, a humble copper-plated steel coin emerged from the Royal Mint, the 2000 UK 1 penny. At first glance, this coin might seem ordinary, an everyday piece of change passed between hands in cafes, bus stops, and markets. But for those with an eye for history and rarity, this small disc held more than just a face value. The 2000 UK 1 penny coin bore the unmistakable authority of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Her effigy, designed by Ian Rank Broadley, was stoic and serene, capturing the dignity of a monarch whose reign had already stretched nearly half a century by that point. The profile of the Queen faced right, with her crown gently resting above her curls, and a sense of composed sovereignty in her expression. Surrounding her likeness were the Latin words, Elizabeth II DG Reg FD, followed by the year, anchoring the coin in its precise moment in history. On the reverse side, the familiar design of the portcullis stood tall, a symbol associated with the Palace of Westminster and with the democratic traditions of the United Kingdom. The chains of the gate were detailed yet stylized, and the entire design was ringed with the word 1 penny and the numeric 1 just beneath the gate. It was a design not merely chosen for aesthetic appeal, but for the deep historical symbolism it carried. The portcullis had long represented parliamentary authority and governance, a gate both to be defended and opened, depending on the times. While billions of pennies were minted over the years, the year 2000 holds a certain mystique among numismatists. It was a threshold year, marking the close of one era and the beginning of another. That symbolic weight added to the intrigue of every item produced during that period. But beyond symbolism, something else set this particular coin apart. Occasionally, within even the most sophisticated minting operations, anomalies occur. In the case of the 2000 penny, certain rare variants made their way into circulation. Coins struck with minted die alignment errors, or those that used older or experimental planchets. Some bore imperfections that turned out to be unique identifiers. Others possessed characteristics that would only be discovered years later, under magnifying lenses and in careful comparison with other examples. It was these rare variants, unnoticed by the general public, that would become the crown jewels for dedicated collectors. A coin is never just a coin. It is a witness. Imagine the stories a single penny could tell, tossed into a wishing fountain, buried in a child's time capsule, passed through countless hands from generation to generation. The year 2000 itself carried with it both excitement and anxiety. The Y2K scare, the burgeoning digital age, the rise of global connectivity. Holding a coin from that year is like holding a slice of the moment, one that pulsed with both nostalgia and novelty. Collectors today understand this deeply. The 2000 UK 1 penny is now sought not for its face value, but for its historical context, its condition, and its scarcity. Pristine examples are incredibly rare, especially those bearing the subtle markers of a unique minting run or error. These aren't the kinds of coins you find in spare change. These are discoveries made in forgotten drawers, and collections passed down unknowingly, in rolls of coins saved out of habit and later examined with awe. The appeal of such a coin goes beyond the metal. It represents a moment in time when the world stood on a cusp. It reflects the quiet craftsmanship of the Royal Mint and the enduring fascination with British coinage, whose history stretches back over a millennium. And for the collector, who uncovers a rare 2000 penny, the journey from humble change to numismatic treasure is nothing short of magic. Today, one of these extraordinary specimens, a 2000 UK 1 penny coin, flawlessly preserved and bearing the telltale signs of rarity, holds an astonishing value of $166,000.
The year was 1960. A time of rhythm and revolution, of whispered dreams and roaring progress. America stood on the edge of change, both politically and culturally. The air buzzed with ambition. John F. Kennedy was on the campaign trail, television sets flickered with black and white hope, and young Americans were awakening to a new sense of purpose. In that turbulent and promising backdrop, something small yet significant was born. Not in the spotlight, but quietly, pressed between steel machines in the depths of the U.S. Mint. A coin. A penny. Just 1 cent, but destined to capture the imaginations of collectors and historians alike. It was copper-toned, unassuming. It had Abraham Lincoln's calm, determined profile etched into its surface, his gaze forever fixed forward, as though peering into a future even he couldn't quite predict. Yet, this particular penny, this 1960 issue, would carry with it not just the legacy of a president, but a tale of rarity, oversight, and value. It was a time when the mint was under intense pressure. The nation's economy was bustling, and coin production had to keep pace. Millions of coins were churned out every day. But amid the monotony of mass production, nature always finds a way to sneak in variation, to infuse the ordinary with the extraordinary. There were 2 main versions of the 1960 penny, the small date and the large date. The differences? Subtle. In fact, to the average eye, nearly invisible. But to the trained collector, the distinction was like spotting a hidden treasure map in plain sight. The small date variety featured numerals in the date that appeared slightly more compact. The large date had taller, broader numbers. These minor differences stemmed from the mint's ongoing attempts to perfect the coin's design. Tools were adjusted, dies were replaced, and before anyone could track it all meticulously, these variations had made their way into the public's hands. But it wasn't just that. Something even rarer happened, a double die. And not just any double die, but one where the date and lettering had been struck twice, creating a ghostly echo effect on the coin's surface. These weren't meant to exist. They were anomalies. Accidents. Yet, they slipped through quality control, unnoticed by the mint's workers who were more concerned with volume than perfection. At first, the public didn't know. The coins circulated freely, passed from palm to palm, tossed into piggy banks, dropped into vending machines. Who could have guessed the hidden potential in something so ordinary? It wasn't until sharp-eyed collectors began scrutinizing the 1960 pennies that the whispers started. Something was different. Something was off. And then, slowly but surely, the hunt began. Coin shops, flea markets, estate sales, everywhere, collectors began examining their change, hoping to find a 1960 penny with that unique twist. In the Midwest, a teenage boy named Alan had a growing fascination with coins. He wasn't trained. He wasn't wealthy. He simply loved history. Every afternoon, after school, he'd rummage through his grandfather's old cigar box, looking for coins that felt different. One rainy afternoon, with the wind tapping gently against the windowpane, he spotted it. A coin that looked unusual. The date seemed off. Smaller. More compressed. He looked closer, tilting it under the light. The doubling was faint but there. Unmistakably so. At the time, he didn't realize what he held. But he knew enough to keep it safe. Across the country, in a quiet corner of Oregon, a retired machinist named Ed discovered another. He had always respected precision, and when he compared 2 1960 pennies side by side, his trained eye caught the anomaly. Something didn't line up. He showed his findings to a local collector, and the buzz grew louder. Soon, coin communities were in a frenzy, trying to piece together the puzzle of the 1960 penny. How many had been minted? Where were they struck? Which were more common, the large date or small date? And most importantly, what were they worth? Mint records revealed that these variations occurred at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Yet, not all combinations were created equal. Some were exceedingly scarce, especially the 1960 small date struck at the Denver Mint. The D Mint mark, stamped just beneath the date, marked a coin of particular intrigue. Among these, those with proof-like qualities or flawless preservation, without scratches, tarnish, or wear, began to rise in desirability. And among them all, a few were simply priceless. Years passed. More coins were found. Some were verified and graded by experts, encapsulated in airtight holders with detailed labels. But the most coveted pieces weren't just defined by their variety. It was their condition, their story, and their survival through decades of circulation. For every coin that made it through untouched, hundreds of thousands were spent, lost, or damaged beyond recognition. Alan, now a grown man, still kept his 1960 penny. He'd had it graded years earlier, and the experts confirmed what he had always suspected: it was not just a small date, but a double die in near-pristine condition. He hadn't sold it. Not yet. Because sometimes, holding a piece of history feels more valuable than money, but markets change. Tastes evolve. And with the rise of digital auctions and global collectors, rare coins have found new stages on which to shine. One particular specimen, flawless in its preservation, dramatic in its doubling, and bearing the signature of that elusive Denver mint, recently changed hands. Quietly, privately. Not in a bustling auction hall, but behind closed doors, where serious collectors and investors whisper numbers most people only dream of, and when the deal was done, and the coin had changed hands, its final value was no longer a mystery. That single 1961-cent penny, born in an age of ambition, quietly traveled through history and emerged into the spotlight, carrying with it the weight of rarity, time, and story. It sold for an astounding $190,000.